Motorsports. As they dive into the second half of the season, the short track stars of the ASA are fueled up and ready to go. Thus far, one name stands out. Kevin Sawinski's dominance as much about what hasn't happened as it is about what has. In the season opener, it looked like luck. But the luck carried over to Auburn and on to Jennerstown. By IRP, he seemed bulletproof. Even the high banks of I-70 proved no obstacle for the #1 team. They roll into LaCrosse on a 2-race winning streak. Skill, luck, lightning-fast pit stops. Can anyone stop the Lefevre racing machine? Find out next. We got an absolutely jam-packed crowd here for the Wisconsin 300. The only problem is, there's a little bit chance of rain here, about 50%, 85 degrees, and a lot of humidity in the air. But we're going to do everything we can to get some AC-Delco Challenge Series racing in your living room here tonight. Well, we hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and we're set to go racing here with the AC-Delco Challenge Series. And even though this is one of the home tracks for Kevin Sawinski, Jim Trado, there are still 3 other guys who stand a real good chance of knocking him out of victory lane today, including Kevin Noodleman, Tim Sauter, Steve Carlson, a handful of guys.
Including, and throw Steve Holzhausen in that mix, and last year's winner, Bob Seneker from Michigan. You never thought he'd win at LaCrosse the first time back last season since 1981. It was anybody's ball game a year ago. The drivers you mentioned are drivers to watch today. Sawinski on a streak. We also have Steve Holzhausen, who ran here weekly, including last evening's show. Kevin Noodleman's a 6-time track champion, and he also throws Steve Carlson, who lives 3 blocks away and has raced here weekly from mid-70s on through the late 80s. Should be a pretty exciting event, and this is the halfway point for the 1997 ASA Tour. And take a look at some of the things that have come out over the 1997 season. The average lead lap finishers, Jim, I think is pretty interesting. Average start among winners is, 9th place is where the winners come from. And also there's 10 guys out of the 24 that have competed in all 10 events. 24 teams, top 10 guys usually finish on lead lap. Let's take it downstairs now to Dave Burns, who has a little bit more on what's happening on the front of the grid.
Rick Beebe is on the pole for the 3rd time in 1997. That's no surprise to his outside. Gary St. Amant sits there in the 2nd position. He has qualified well in every event this season so far. The surprise, 3rd fastest qualifier, Tim Sauter in the 55 car. His best qualifying effort up until now had been a 7th place. Today he qualifies 3rd. He's also running 2nd in the rookie points and has had 3 top 10s in 97 to his credit. Tim, when you run this place, is the fact that you know the track so well, does that take some pressure off the team and let you put the concentration of the effort into some other areas?
It definitely does. The car is real good. Coming back to our home track and a place where we can be real comfortable takes a lot of the pressure off me and the car, and it's going to let us concentrate on the tires today. I think tire wear is going to be a big factor here. Yesterday in some testing and some long green runs, we lost quite a bit of rubber, so we're looking at just being smooth and taking our time.
And if you believe in good omens, last night the youngest Sauter, John, he won a late model race right here at LaCrosse.
The Pat Schauer Rookie of the Year award is one of the things that Tim Sauter is trying to get, and he sits 2nd in that, and everybody's trying to catch Steve Carlson. This is the home track for Carlson and Sauter. Mike Hofer rearranged and reorganized his team. We'll see if he can advance from 3rd in the overall rookie standings at this point. The other award to keep your eyes on, of course, is the 1997 ASA Championship. That's what Kevin Sawinski leads right now, but Gary St. Amant not going away anytime soon. And Scott Hansen, on for 2 podium finishes, has now climbed to 3rd. Rick Beebe, who's on a tear right now, is 4th in points in that rookie leader. Steve Carlson sits 5th. And he can make some moves here today, of course, having so much knowledge of this racetrack. Mike Eddy has moved up into 9th. You think he could break into the top 5? I certainly think he has a shot today, but he has to be consistent and has to run all 300 laps, something he could not do, finish races earlier in the year. Well, that takes care of the business. Now all we have to do is fire up these 9-to-1 V6 engines. So let's send it back downstairs to Dave Burns with a special guest to fire them up.
Well, in addition to racing here in Wisconsin, they have something else going on this time of year called the Cheese League, and it's NFL training camps, and the New Orleans Saints are part of that. This is Heath Schuler. He's a quarterback for the Saints, and Heath, you're kind of a racing fan. What do your teammates think about you being a stock car racing fan?
Well, I invited a couple of them out today, so they're kind of excited. It's for the first opportunity they've had a chance, and they're going to see what it's all about today.
This is Heath's first ASA race, and he's got the most important job right now, so Heath, go ahead.
You got it. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Oh, the best way to keep the thunder out of the sky is to put the thunder into the racetrack. And that's what we've done as the ASA is ready to go racing. The AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by your GM Goodwrench service dealer. We want your business. The LaCrosse 300 is getting set to get underway. LaCrosse Speedway, West Salem, Wisconsin. Basically, we're in LaCrosse, Wisconsin, is a major big city nearby.
We're about 10 miles east of the Mississippi, right along the Minnesota border, where Iowa and Minnesota meet up with Wisconsin.
And let's take a look at the grid for today's LaCrosse 300. On the pole, Rick Beebe, 100.134 miles an hour in his Pontiac, 19.5 seconds. Gary St. Amant will line up alongside of him, just about 0.03 of a second behind him.
Heard from Dave Burns, Tim Sauter's best career ASA qualifying effort in third. He was the quickest guy in practice all morning long. Kevin Sawinski comes in first in points, fourth on the grid this afternoon in his Pontiac.
Back into row 3, Scott Hansen looking for a victory, and Brad Loney coming out of Hawkeye Downs is his home track. He's got a lot of laps here as well, being so close to Iowa. Brad Loney will start in row 3.
Qualifying seventh is Bob Seneker, who won this race a year ago, and Dave Sensible, who is up as high as second in points, trying to rebound and get back in the top 5 in that West Michigan Auto Auction Pontiac.
In row number 5, out of Detroit, Michigan, comes Harold Farron, and the new Old Style beer sponsored number 18 is Mike Miller.
Trim Class 2000 sponsoring Ted Smokestad's Pontiac effort, and Steve Holzhausen, who was extremely strong here a year ago until a flat tire dropped him from the lead, will start outside row 6.
Row 7, you're going to find Joe Knott, who's going to have his first Busch race coming up this week at IRP, and Steve Carlson looking to capture the Rookie of the Year honors, running here at his home track.
Qualifying 15th is Mike Garvey, who won last night in St. Louis at an ARTCO event. He'll start 8th row outside of him, Jack Landis in the Noe Yoders Ford.
Row 9, the 7-time champion Mike Eddy, and one of the fastest stock car drivers ever out of Canada, Junior Hanley.
Row 10, we find Kevin Noodleman, 6-time track champion in that Citgo Dutch Mill Trucking Pontiac. Outside of him, Brandon Sperling in on a provisional. His hauler broke down on the way here. They had to come in this morning.
Next row back, row 11, Bill Baird, who has hobbies like flying Russian MiGs, and the Zero Hero, Tom Jones, who's been dealing with lots of engine woes all season long.
Inside row 12 is Mike Kofer. We mentioned Don Schrock coming over as the crew chief. The operation moving to Ohio. To his outside, Billy Turner, best ever qualifying effort in that Santa Fe Pontiac.
Lucky row 13, Andy Burgess in one of his first ASA starts, and Johnny Spa, who we expect one of these days to be a regular player on the AC-Delco Challenge Series.
And he was a former Rookie of the Year for the weekly program here at LaCrosse. Paul Payne has raced here before. He has his own Chevrolet starting inside row 14. Outside of him, 17-year-old Justin Dirks out of Iowa making his first ASA start in the Dirks Ford.
Chuck Hemmingson got his career started racing SCCA road racing. Now he's moved over to the AC-Delco Challenge Series. And Ricky Bilderbach getting another start. We saw him first this year at Hawkeye Downs.
And Chuck Hemmingson will be in the final spot there. And we have 31 cars. Doug Mayer as well is on the grid. He's no-touch car care Pontiac, Chevrolet qualified 18th, but he spun on his second qualifying lap, so he will have to start from the tail in the backup car.
Here's Doug right there in car number 11. This racetrack here at LaCrosse, it became one of my favorites when we came here last year. It's a half mile, but Jim Boyd, does it provide some good racing.
Nice wide straightaways, 5-degree banking only on the straights, and then the turns, it does deceive you because the turns are so wide. The teams think they have more than 2 or 3 options. It is 2 and 3 wide racing. We've seen that here at LaCrosse last season, but this racetrack does provide for some very tight racing because the banking sometimes doesn't hold the cars on the outside, and that creates opportunities underneath to make some passes.
For more on the racetrack, Dave Burns.
Guys, there's a little bit of breakup in turns 3 and 4. And Jim, you talked about those 3 lines. If you see those breakup spots, you either want to try to run very low underneath them, straddle them, or maybe go high. That, of course, is the most critical line in terms of getting out of shape. Kevin Noodleman told me that he always sets up his car to run low here at LaCrosse, so look for him to go low underneath the trouble in 3 and 4.
There's Kevin Noodleman, and again, 6-time track champion, trying to run as many as 8 shows to protect his rookie status. He ran 14th in the weekly show last night. His backup car was driven by Steve Holzhausen to a 3rd place finish in the weekly program. So those guys have a lot of track time here just in the last couple of days.
31 cars will take the green flag today. 17 in Pontiacs, 6 in Fords, and 8 in Chevrolets. Ford drivers might be something to keep an eye on here today, Jim.
Yeah, they have a 750 cubic foot per minute carburetor, which is a little larger than they've been running. They've had run it in the past. ASA has given Fords that, so the power range matches the Chevrolet and the Buick power plants a little bit more evenly, so we'll see even more parity here in ASA.
Green flag, and we're racing. Beebe and Sauter going down into turn 3, and Tim Sauter going to work on him in a hurry. Gary St. Amant holds on to 3rd, but Sauter already challenging for the lead.
Caution flag is out because Mike Eddy was turned to the inside of the racetrack. There he is coming off of turn number 4. His car was all but one wheel in the grass on the restart, on the start, as the cars were double and 3 wide. Heading into turn 3, Justin Dirks here, making his first ASA start, really his first full season of late model racing for the 17-year-old out of Iowa. Got spun around. His one of the guys on the team is Tim Carlson, Steve's brother, who helps out Justin at Hawkeye Downs Speedway.
Justin tried to run at Hawkeye Downs and didn't make the show there.
Here we see Mike Eddy going to the inside. That's his car spinning. All the other cars doing a fine job to avoid. Birthday boy Billy Baird on the inside in the 26 gets through.
Junior Hanley did a great job in the 72 of avoiding him. You can see he was completely sideways in the white car.
The black car was Brandon Sperling going high to avoid Eddie's spun car.
So the Goodwrench Service Plus machine of Mike Eddy back into position, and we'll be back to green here shortly. So stay where you are. We're coming back to West Salem, Wisconsin right after this. Hopefully we won't need a whole lot of tools once we get racing, but we did have our first caution on our first lap here today at the LaCrosse 300. And we're about set to go back to green here. The AC-Delco Challenge Series Pontiac pace car should be pulling off. It does, and Rick Beebe will lead him back to the green from Roger Slack. We pretty much pick up right where we left off with Sauter giving chase to Beebe and pressuring him hard in the early stages. That's St. Amant in 3rd and Scott Hansen running in 4th.
Hansen qualified 5th, but early on here has gotten around Kevin Sawinski. All restarts during an event in ASA are started single file, so Hansen got the advantage on that first lap, and we have another spin.
We got another yellow because we've got a couple of cars around over in turn number 2.
Andy Burgess goes around, as does Tom Jones.
Yep. There's the Zero Hero, who's had nothing but motor problems, Jim, all season long.
May have them figured out. He had to borrow a motor from Alec Pincino the other week. And speaking of Alec Pincino, he's not here today. And while we have a moment here, we want to tell everybody that Alec and his crew were on the way here. They got involved with a highway accident and unfortunately really did some damage to the equipment. The good news is there's been a rib injury for the driver of the hauler. All the other team members are checked out. They're okay. Tom Jones sent his motor home to get those guys back to Windsor, Ontario.
There's a look at the replay of what happened. Hard to tell from there exactly who caused what, as you saw both cars sliding sideways. And as Jim mentioned, of course, everybody here at the ASA family hoping that all the Pincino gang is okay, and we hope to see them at the next race. Well, and it looked like, Jim, they both just got loose.
Going into turn number 1 is very tricky. If you go in a little bit high, as Doug Mayer did in qualifying, you'll find the ends looping around before you know it. Andy Burgess in his second career ASA start, and Tom Jones looked like they may have made slight contact, but as you mentioned, it looks like they both just had the rear end slip away on them.
There's Burgess in that green 09. Those of you looking for Joe Shear in the field won't find him, even though he came up and tried to qualify for today's show.
They found some mechanical gremlins in that car, so Joe elected not to start the 99, but we may see him back at the Minnesota State Fair on Labor Day or in Cedar Rapids, Iowa on Friday night on TNN.
Green flag once again from Roger Slack. See if we can get a lap in here. Boy, Sauter, He really likes to go deep into turn 3, and we all get through the first 2 turns okay. And let's see if the whole field can get across the start-finish line. Hansen looking inside of St. Amant. Kevin Noodleman dives for pit road problems for the Citgo 21, but we did get a complete green flag lap in. There is Noodleman down pit road. Maybe cut a tire down. They go to work on the right side of the car.
There's some front-end damage from an earlier altercation. Could have happened on the first lap or the 7th lap when we had our first 2 incidents of the afternoon.
Beebe, Sauter, St. Amant, Hansen, Sawinski, Miller, Sensiba, Loney, Seneker, Fair, Holzhausen. That's your order right now. That takes you all the way back to 11th position. Noodleman with the tires changed back out on the racetrack, and he's about to go a lap down. He does. Look at how deep Sauter gets into turn 3.
Like I mentioned, he was fast off the truck, and as Rick Beebe bettered him and one other driver, Gary St. Amant, qualifying, Sauter certainly had the car to watch. And here again, you see how his car is handling so perfectly. Crew Chief Terry Evans said the car isn't bad, it's not good, it's perfect. It's right where Tim needs it, right where we think this team can operate.
Boy, he's hugging that bottom groove, and we're going to go yellow because we got a couple of cars, including Billy Turner, who's got a bit of fire underneath his car as he tries to restart it, and Bill Baird was involved in it as well.
That was off of turn number 2, and if you caught that, Tim Sauter was already told by a spotter to slow down to the line because ASA teams do not race back to yellow. But get back to Tim Sauter. That car did handle extremely well. You'll see some of the cars push up throughout the race, and Tim said that's one thing they don't want to do. They want to avoid that entirely, and unfortunately for Billy Turner, he couldn't avoid the turn 2 wall. Very narrow appearing off of turn number 2. Very narrow line off of the second corner.
Bill Baird not suffering as much damage as poor Billy Turner. So the fans here at LaCrosse love their AC-Delco Challenge Series racing. Rick Beebe leading it in front of them right now. Welcome back to LaCrosse, and Kevin Sawinski just dove down pit road. Let's find out what happened, Dave Burns.
Yeah, we're going to ask Mike Chappie real quick. Mike, you guys went under the hood. What are you chasing?
Plug wire fell off just going down the back straightaway. We were really lucky about the yellow flag coming out, so we got her fixed.
Okay, they're back at it. Did not lose a lap. Kevin Noodleman had a right rear tire that had gone flat. They got him in and out. They did not change the stagger or anything on his car. He liked the way it was handling until the right rear went down.
Mike Chaffee, of course, a crew chief for Kevin Sawinski, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Jim, I think he's pretty underrated. I think he is a really good crew chief and has done a lot to get Kevin Sawinski into the position he is in this year.
And this is the 15th season he's worked with an ASA team. He was Jay Sauter's crew chief for a long time, and he worked with Chris Weiss's team. When Jay made the move over to Scott Lefebvre's operation, Mike went over there. He's now full-time with Kevin Sawinski, but it has been the crew chief for Sawinski his entire ASA run, which is all of a year and a half. And they've had 6 wins in the last 14 races, so that team is certainly on a roll.
Well, and the latest Sauter to tackle the AC-Delco Challenge Series is Tim Sauter. He runs in that blue and orange number 55, giving chase to our leader, Rick Beebe. He's been out front before.
Certainly has. He led 15 laps at Jennerstown, looking to lead just for those 5 bonus points. Again, he's 10th in points overall, which is great for any rookie. The year that Dave Sensiba beat out Brian Ruffner for Rookie of the Year, to give it some sort of historical perspective, they were 11th and 13th in the overall points. So to run 10th in points and run second in the rookie standings is outstanding. So he's got that race and the rookie race. Any and every point counts. He wants to lead a lap, get 5 points.
5 different races we've seen Beebe out front, correct?
Yes, he's led over 190 laps now in ASA competition.
There's the old style number 18 of Mike Miller, who's put his fair share of laps in at this racetrack.
Mike Miller has run this racetrack. He loves this racetrack. He and his friends at Old Style threw a little party for all the ASA teams Friday evening. Old Style in the quarterfinals of that Unicio Pontiac for this race, and he's hoping for some more.
That's a fight for 4th as he tries to chase Scott Hansen. But look at this battle for the lead. To the inside comes Sauter, pushing Beebe up a lane. He doesn't want to go there, tries to cut back. Now, as Sauter takes the lead, Beebe's got to fend off St. Amant and Hansen. I think they're all going to freight train by him. Beebe hung up onto the outside. He goes from 1st to 5th in about 2 corners.
The easiest way to say it is turns 1 and 2 are the narrow portion of the racetrack. Turns 3 and 4 is where you can go 2-wide racing. Tim Sauter, with his experience here, running for Rookie of the Year honors. He finished second to Johnny Spa in that run in the weekly program here in 1989. Knows how to get around this racetrack. Gary St. Amant happy to run second right now. Followed him through the hole, as did Scott Hansen and Mike Miller.
Turns 3 and 4, what you're looking at right there, are Wide coming in and tight coming off. And now into turn 1, it's tight going in and wide coming out.
And really the teams start turning just after the start-finish line into turn number 1. This racetrack is very circular going into turns 1 and 2. Turn 3, I took the golf cart ride out there earlier today, and it does have a wide entrance similar to the Milwaukee Mile even. It looks that wide, 60, 70 feet wide. But off in turn 4, as you mentioned, Ralph, another tug to the left to keep that car off the wall in turn 4.
Battle for 11th. Smokestad, the 32, the Trimplast blue, red, and white car. Joe Knott, the red 48.
Steve Holtzhausen off the pace now in the structural transport Ford. Not good news for that team.
Steve Carlson also in that fight for 11th. That's the white 87. Crew Chief Howie Ledout putting another good car underneath Steve Carlson as he goes for his 5th title, does Howie Ledout, as crew chief for a guy who might win the Pat Shower Rookie of the Year award. That's an unbelievable stat that Howie has achieved.
And he was the crew chief for the late Pat Shower, who won that award posthumously in 1981. That was up to 2nd in the point standings in his initial season in ASA, and I don't think that's been duplicated. The only time it's been matched is when Steve Carlson took the lead earlier this year in the points, the 2nd race of the year when he won that event and briefly had the point lead.
Steve Holtzhausen, who we expected good things out of, is having a frustrating afternoon, Dave.
Yeah, Dave Marg and the boys are going to work on it, but they've just put the hood down. They think they might have lost a cylinder, and Holtzhausen has taken the gloves off. It looks like he's done.
We mentioned Steve Holtzhausen ran the weekly show last evening. He has had this car apart 7 times this weekend, and I wish I was exaggerating. They really worked with the Rander car chassis, trying to get it to handle better, and now a motor problem sidelining that Ford team. Not what they wanted after a hard, long, sweat-filled day yesterday.
Tim Sauter continues to lead here as he's getting pressure now from the Wins Ford or Wins Chevy of Gary St. Amant. Still used to seeing Gary behind the wheel of that blue oval.
And Dave Burns does confirm that they have lost a cylinder in Holtzhausen's car. As another Wisconsinite, Tim Sauter, takes the point. The 2nd leader of the race, Rick Beebe, the pole winner.
Scott Hansen trying to run up underneath Gary St. Amant from 3rd as they fight for 2nd, which really is a 5-car fight for the lead.
In talking to Gary St. Amant, he said tire wear may be a concern here because it was such a hot, sunny day today until about an hour before race time. He thought the track temperatures might increase tire wear, so he may be running a little bit more conservative than he wanted to. He may have a faster car at this point in the race, but looking for a way to get around Sauter without damaging or sacrificing some tire wear.
Dave Sensiba runs just behind this pack, and he has actually caught the tail end of it. He holds on 6. He's right behind the yellow car of Beebe, so it's really now a 6-car fight for the lead. There he is, and if Brad Loney can pick up another car length and a half, it'll be a 7-car freight train. Behind Loney in 8th is Seneca, 9th is Harold Fair. Then it's still Smokestad, Knott, Carlson all the way back. Now, don't forget that the 18 car of Mike Miller started 10th, and he's now running 4th. As you look at Loney, who, as we said at the beginning of the show, has had a tremendous amount of laps here, Jim. He might be able to break through here today. Brad
Loney had run this track weekly in 1990 and 1991. Finished 3rd and 2nd in the standings overall. First time he's on pavement racing. He ran LaCrosse Fairground Speedway here and his home track, Hawkeye Down Speedway in Cedar Rapids.
We saw Doug Mayer's no-touch Menards car going down pit road. He is pulled back behind the wall. He is now a lap down. That puts us 5 cars a lap down, 26 cars on the lead lap right now as we continue to lap here, working lap 35.
It's a 13-car train behind Tim Sauter. He's the engine right now pulling this train down the backstretch here at LaCrosse Fairground Speedway, but anywhere he's in 1st and 13th to Steve Carlson, there's less than a car length between these cars as they come single file up for turn 4.
Here they come. All the way back to Carlson, who is listed in 12th position. What a great fight we've got going here. Well, if you've never seen AC-Delco Challenge Series racing before, this is not unusual. This is what this series is all about. Rex Robbins has done a tremendous job in putting together a rule book that allows for racing just like this. I think it's one of the best designed series as far as the rules go in all of racing.
One of the most recent developments is the no finish under caution rule. That has been installed in the AC-Delco Challenge Series for a number of years. And as we see Tim Sauter leading Gary St. Amant again, St. Amant trying to hang on to those tires. He said about 60, maybe 70, perhaps even 80 laps on a set of tires, but the right sides will be the ones that will wear out first.
Fight for 11th continues with Joe Knott, who, as I said at the beginning, is going to have his first Busch Grand National ride. Coming up this week at Indianapolis at IRP, he's going to drive Mac Martin's number 92. Went down, did a little testing over there, said things went great. Looking for good things there. He's not going to be the only other ASA guy in competition at IRP this week. Gary St. Amant is going to drive Kevin Duran's number 77 Craftsman truck. And there's going to be another guy in the truck competition down there.
Kevin Sawinski will be one of 5 drivers that team owner Kurt Rohrig will be trying out in his Dana-sponsored Dodge pickup truck. Teammate to Tony Raines, Michael Dockett is one of those 5, but they're trying to search to find a good driver, the best driver available. And he's agreed to race the IRP event for that team that has Kevin Sawinski, the current point leader.
Look at Carlson trying to squeeze up underneath Joe Knott. And, of course, you mentioned Tony Raines. Tony Raines, the 1996 ASA champ. As you watch this fight there back in 11th, we'll move up front to the beginning. The 18 car of Mike Miller, the red and white number 18. Uniseal old style beer number 18, trying to get around Scott Hansen. Hansen's car, of course, owned by Winston Cup driver Ken Schrader. That car housed in Schrader's race shops in Concord, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte.
And he and Sauter were the only 2 drivers to practice below the existing track record, which was set 1 year ago. So by Sawinski. So these guys really know how to get around the joint. Hansen and Sauter, the current race leader, excuse me.
Everybody able to run that bottom groove too, Jim. Nobody really seems to be struggling on the bottom. Looks like everybody hit the early setup pretty good. Let's see what happens as this thing progresses. A lot of guys were concerned about the track maybe getting a little bit slippery as Tim Sauter leads lap 43. But you know, the cloud cover that we've had here due to the potential for rain, and there is a 50% chance of it here today, I think is going to help keep the track cool and keep some grip into it.
And there was a rain shower last evening before the local program, so they did get a chance to put some rubber back down on the racetrack after ASA had practiced and qualified yesterday afternoon. So the track is holding up rather well, and you can see the black areas there up at turn number 4. That's where actual tire rubber has been laid down by these Goodyear Eagles and by the local show last night.
The youngster Dirk's going down another lap as the leaders come through. Well, the lead continues for Tim Sauter. Gary St. Amant, patient to run in second. Size up where he might be able to make a pass. So LaCrosse 300 continues on TNN Motorsports right after this. Back in 1971, a guy by the name of Jim Sauter won the late model stock car championship here at LaCrosse, Wisconsin. Today, his son, Tim Sauter, leads the LaCrosse 300, but he's getting heavy pressure from Gary St. Amant in the wins, number 7. Scott Hansen in the white 52, giving chase. Mike Miller behind him in the 18, and nothing has changed. We've got a 12-car freight train fighting for the lead, and this is something we haven't seen. A guy taking a look to the outside. Can't do it, and St. Amant happily tucks right in behind him and will wait for another opportunity. And another guy who's hoping he doesn't get a whole lot of pressure this year from the defensive line is going to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, Heath Schuler. Heath, nice to have you here with us in the booth. Hope you're enjoying the race.
Oh, yeah, it's been a great race so far.
Heath was the guy who was able to, say, fire the engines earlier today. Let's take a look at this here, and this is Harold Fair in the 81 and the 32 at Ted Smokestad getting together a little bit. Now, you're a big stock car fan, huh?
Oh, yeah. I grew up in North Carolina and went to school at the University of Tennessee, so I got to know a lot of the drivers in that time period.
Not going to see a lot of racing maybe down in New Orleans this year, huh?
Now there's not as much racing there, but in the off-season I do get an opportunity to go to, I always go to the Daytona race with Sterling Marlin.
Right. There you see Ted Smokestad chasing after the Bluebird, Bob Seneker. Now, you know, Heath, there's quite a few guys, as we watch the fight for the lead again, who have come out of professional sports, who have gotten into racing, and a few of them out of football, including we got a guy by the name of Mike Kofer, who used to kick for the San Francisco 49ers, racing out here tonight in the number 79 car. And, of course, we've got Joe Montana, who owns an Indy car. A lot of guys. Dan Pastorini has been involved.
Mark Ripken.
Right. As you watch the battle for 8th, are you going to get involved, do you think, at some point?
I don't know. Hopefully maybe at some point in time it may be a good opportunity at the right time, obviously.
Now, this, of course, is the Cheese League, and I know my buddy Jim Trado over there, who hails from Wisconsin, is a big follower of that. How are the Saints stacking up this year as you get into spring training?
Well, it's obviously early, and with Mike Ditka, he's really given us a really tough training camp. The weather's been, the humidity and the heat, but he's given us a tough training camp, and we're looking forward to the season. We have to get a couple of wins under our belts and sort of change the Saints organization around.
What do you think of racing when you compare it to professional football? Obviously, the heat is a tough thing when you guys go through training camp here, and you've seen what the drivers have gone through. What kinds of things do you do as an athlete to try to beat the heat that maybe some of these guys have done preparing for today?
Well, obviously, I think they got to, hydrate themselves, drink a lot of water before the race, and, continue to drink throughout the race if they have the opportunity. The thing that I look at these guys with quarterbacks and football players, mentally they have to be in this game every second, every minute of the race. And with us, at least we do get to take a break. So I think there's as much mental pressure on these guys as they are physical pressure. No
halftime for Gary St. Amant or Tim Sauter at this point. They're just battling for the lead and potentially a win here as we work our way through the LaCrosse 300. Great side-by-side racing. Every time St. Amant gets on the gas a little bit harder, so does Sauter. Cross the line, and finally St. Amant will take the lead diving into turn number 1. Hansen will take a look to the inside of Sauter, and he's not going to be able to get him just there. That second groove really looks like it's coming in a little bit, Jim.
And Gary has gone in hard into turn number 1 and found something there. He actually gained on Tim Sauter last time. He took the lead. I thought he might have gone to the fence because he went into turn 1 so deep. But you see Gary again off of turn number 4, and this wins West Michigan Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Go into turn 3. He'll stay on the bottom. He might have just been experimenting, but no, he drifts up. We see Gary drifting up higher than any of the other teams have been running. Off of turn number 4 down the front stretch.
Dave Burns, you've got something to add?
Gary told me right before the race that he expected Tim Sauter to fall off a little bit after the beginning. Gary said, my car is better as the race goes along because we're a little bit better at taking care of our tires. It'll be a real challenge for the 55 car to come back from this early setback.
Jim, that's exactly what we had said a little while ago, that it looked like everybody had cars set up good for the early stages. Now let's see what happens as we get into the later stages. 60 laps have been completed, so now you got to start wondering about that first round of pit stops and who's going to be strong for the late run. Mike Eddy, he started 13th, and he's moving. He started 17th, and he's moving up. He's actually up to 13th now, and right onto the back of Carlson. And Noodleman will bring out a yellow.
Perfect timing for the teams on the pit lane. Ralphie just mentioned trying to get on pit lane. This will give a chance for Tim Sauter and Gary St. Amant to make those tire changes and make some adjustments on pit road.
60-plus laps completed, 67 laps actually in the books. So this is right about when a lot of guys will start to think about it. And it looks like there's quite a bit of activity on pit road. So we might see that first round of regular pit stops coming now. Let's take a look at the replay here.
Off of turn number 2, we see Kevin already out of shape. He takes out an AC-Delco banner, but that's a long slide in the grass to the infield. May have touched the wall coming off of turn number 2, and that sent him streaming towards the infield.
Heath, this is where the football player attitude kind of comes in as we get into pit stops, being quick on your feet over the wall and lifting that big car up.
You got it, sort of like the timeouts. You have to get everyone together, and the coaching staff and the players all have to be on the same wavelength when it comes to a timeout. And it's quick and it's easy, but you have to make the right adjustments.
And a lot of them going to take advantage of it. Joe Knott, Mike Garvey, Brandon Sperling, Tom Jones. But not all of the big names, Dave Burns.
Joe Knott is coming in. They've not had a year that they're proud of yet. They're trying to turn that around today. They're going to go to the right side, give Joe that right side Goodyear rubber, and get him back out. Hopefully a quick change. He stalls the car, gets it refired, and is back off the pit lane. A pretty quick stop until he had that stall.
Chris Bradley leading the crew down there as the crew chief for the Raby Ford. And we'll take an opportunity to step away and do a little pit stop of our own. We'll be right back for more of the LaCrosse 300 coming to you on TNN Motorsports. You haven't missed a thing. We just threw the green flag, and Gary St. Amant continues to lead Tim Sauter here as we get back into the LaCrosse 300. And reminder, this is the halfway point for the AC-Delco Challenge Series in 1997. This is race 11 of a 20-race schedule. Now watch what happened to Mike Garvey. Watch the crew guys as they take the hood up on the number 8. Ouch.
I guess they all wanted to get their head under there so much to see the problem, Ralph. Nobody bothered to be the last guy standing and hold that hood up on him.
Dave Burns?
Mike Garvey's already had a winning weekend. He won the Arco race at Gateway International, but that may be as far as they get. They think they have a broken valve spring. He's only running on 5 cylinders, and they also changed the right side tires to try to loosen him up a bit. He was tight.
Yeah, he was going to race last night as well, but because of the late start at Gateway, he had to skip the race last night and came up here instead, ready to go first thing this morning. It's Mike Garvey, a busy guy this weekend.
He made 2 trips down pit lane, Ralph, and Joe Knott came in for the first time, as did Brandon Sperling. Mike Garvey, Tom Jones came in, Andy Burgess, and Junior Hanley. Those drivers have made pit stops, so we'll see how they come back through. Doug Mayer did lose a power steering belt. He now has pulled the 11 car behind the wall for good.
And still with us in the booth, of course, the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, Heath Schuler. And you've had a busy weekend. You had a game against Kansas City yesterday?
Yeah, we sure did. We had a short scrimmage against them, sort of a situational scrimmage. Things went pretty well. Could have been better, but you know, it's early in the preseason.
And you're treating some of your players pretty good too. Dragged a couple of them out here with you today.
Yeah, I brought some of the the number 2 quarterback Doug Nussmeier and my left guard Andy out. So you know, it was the first opportunity for them to ever to be at a race. So they're having a blast.
It's pretty smart, Heath. Be nice to the guy that can take your job, and be nice to the guy that protects you the most.
You got it.
Oh, and we got a spin over in turns 1 and 2. Chuck Hemmingson goes around, and that'll probably bring out a yellow, and it does. I believe that's yellow number 5. Here on the afternoon, coming out on lap 79. Well, Heath, I know you probably got to go run some wind sprints or something to get ready for more of Ditka's tough training camp, so we'll let you go find out what the rest of your players are doing here today. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks so much. It's certainly a pleasure.
Good luck with the season this year.
Thank you.
So Chuck Hemmingson brings out the yellow flag on the 5th one of the day. We'll have to line him back up and get him going again. And here's a look at the replay of what happened to Chuck.
West Des Moines, Iowa driver, road racing expert, gets some company and gets some contact with Tom Jones. And as he tries to turn right on an oval, couldn't quite save it and spun around.
Well, this time, Brad Loney, Dave Sensiba, Harold Fair, who are running up front, they'll come in. Jones comes in as well, as does Mike Kofer, Dirks, and Hemmingson. And yeah, Jonesy got right up under him.
Tom Jones did pit, so he had fresher tires. Perhaps he thought Hemmingson was entering the corner faster than he was.
Let's check in with Dave Burns.
Well, they're playing games down here, of course. Everybody was making like they were going to make pit stops, and then they didn't. And Tim Sauter's crew had a lot of other people, including your camera crew, a bit fooled.
Dave Sensiba, there you see him, the number 6. Still recuperating from that knee surgery. And we'll take an opportunity with the 5th caution of the day to step away once again ourselves, take care of a little business. Don't go away. Plenty more from LaCrosse, Wisconsin coming at you. Some of the early action from the LaCrosse 300. Now, Mike Kofer in car number 79, the Black & Decker machine, has got some problems. We had a yellow just as we went to break. Here's Gary St. Amant now diving down pit road. He's going to be joined by Smokestad, Seneker, Carlson, Sawinski, Fair, and Kofer all coming back in as well. Now, here's how Mike Kofer lost that rear bumper. Watch Junior Hanley's number 72.
He's inside of Brad Loney. They get together here in turn 1. And as Hanley spins up the racetrack, we see Dave Sensiba going by and the 21 of Noodleman. And here comes Mike Kofer, that orange car. Yeah, just gets clipped, and there goes the rear bumper cover.
He went the right way, too. But it just missed it. There's Mike. Now, Mike Kofer has had some major changes on this Black & Decker VersaPack team.
He's moved his entire operation to Ohio, to the shops of Buddy Schrock, who will be racing perhaps just one more ASA race. He's going to help out Fred Reichert in his ASA efforts, but Don Schrock, who'd long time been with St. Amant Racing, is reunited somewhat because this is a St. Amant Racing fielded team. Don Schrock has now taken over the crew chief duties, and about half of the Buddy Schrock crew are now working with some of Mike's guys, including Victor Getzloff, the tire specialist for Dick Trickle for many years. He has now stayed on board with the Schrock operation to help out Mike Hofer in his rookie efforts.
Jamie Neville was the crew chief at the beginning of the year, now no longer with the team. Now it looks like just body damage to Mike's car. There's a good look at the fuel cell in the back of the car. That's that red box hanging low at the bottom.
Mike has had some tough luck this year, and getting handled on the racetrack and getting enough track time is something Mike wants to do. They found a slight engine miss yesterday, kept him from qualifying, but they did get some practice in late yesterday.
And he's pretty fired up about this new organization with the team, too. He thinks that this might help turn around some of that bad luck for him. Well, we've been racing here for quite a few years. And remember, I said back in 1971, Jim Sauter was the track champion here. Well, in 1981, he won an ASA race here.
But look at the names of the drivers that were running the AC-Delco Challenge Series at the time. Jim Sauter beat out the pole winner for the race. That was Dick Trickle. Rusty Wallace in that Child Star 66 was third. Mark Martin, that orange Dillon number 2, was fourth. Bobby Tinkham was fifth. Then you find Seneker, who's still out here. He won this race when they came back to LaCrosse Speedway. The late Pat Shower, the year he won the Rookie of the Year posthumously. Darrell Waltrip in the Mountain Dew Camaro. Mike Eddy and Tom Refner finished the top 10, and there are some other guys that were in the field, Ralph.
Isn't that interesting? Look at that. Butch Lindley in the V6.
That
Don
old
Gregory.
Mountain Dew Cavalier boy. That was some tough car.
The late, great Alan Kowicki and Butch Miller as we go back to green. ASA has been the breeding ground for a lot of big-name race car drivers, and we might be building the careers of a few more here today with Tim Sauter out front being chased by Scott Hansen. Mike Miller runs in third in the old-style Uniseal number 18. Rick Beebe right behind him.
With 90 laps in, Ralph, here's Scott Hansen battling for lead with the 55 of Sauter. These guys have not pitted, nor has Mike Miller, but with Hansen being as aggressive as he is, he perhaps thinks the best shot is on a restart when the tires are the coolest. Wants to get back to going green flag racing. The tire temperatures raise above 200 degrees, 300 degrees, and they really want to take advantage of it early if you can get around Sauter, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen this time.
And how about Mike Eddy? He runs in 5th position after starting 17th after that first lap spin through the grass. The 7-time champ on a charge here this afternoon. Maybe this is the day where he can get himself into victory lane for the first time in 97.
He's still third overall as far as teams that have led laps this season. He's third in the ranking of how many teams have led the most laps. Kevin Sawinski's led the most laps, then Gary St. Amant, and Mike Eddy is still third overall in that category for this season after 10 events.
Mike Gopher goes down a lap in the Black & Decker car, as does Mike Garvey, who is back down pit road in the Myers-backed number 8. So the winner of yesterday's Arco race struggling here today. And Mike Eddy going to work on Rick Beebe. Looking to the inside, and look how good Eddy's car hugs the bottom. He is right up underneath it. Tries to root him up out of the way. Gets him loosened up a little bit and comes by cleanly. Beebe will have to settle back into 5th as Mike Eddy now takes over 4th. What an interesting year Mike Eddy has had. And meanwhile, in the lead, watch this big nudge. You thought Eddy nudged past. Watch this. Hansen in the 52. Well, that's rooting a guy.
Wasn't a successful route, though. He nudged him enough, and when the route is completed, he should have been able to pass him. But he saw 2 left side tires of Hansen's car in the grass, virtually in the grass, to try to get around Sauter inside turns 3 and 4.
Mike Miller was right there waiting in that red 18 to take the spot away if it opened up. And now Hansen once again to the bottom side, looking, trying to make something happen.
Mike Garvey has just pulled that number 8 car behind the wall.
For more on Hansen.
I just talked to Lynn Miller. They said they want to stay out right now, and they believe that the strategy of the other teams like Gary St. Amant and Kevin Sawinski was to come in early and then stay out for the rest of the day. So right now, Hansen's team wants to keep their track position.
How about Hansen completely sideways through 1 and 2 there? Did you see that? He was turning left with the wheels turned to the right.
He's the only guy I've seen to even attempt to pass that low in turns 1 and 2. He's the only driver that went right to the wall in turn 1 in qualifying. Everyone else stayed about a groove and a half off, but Hansen thinks something is down there.
2 of the hungriest drivers on the tour are right now running 1st and 2nd, I gotta believe.
Tim Sauter, 10th in points, is really on a roll. They were up to 3rd position at Wisconsin International Raceway on July 4th. They had a tire go down. Since then, they've been running the top 3, top 4, top 5. The 55 car's had a 13th place finish at Kaukauna, which doesn't really represent how well he's run. And and they backed it up with a 9th at Hawkeye Downs. So that team is again in search of top 5 runs now as they've reached the top 10 consistently.
The flames on the nose of the 55. He keeps saying he's going to take him off. He keeps running good, and he keeps leaving him on.
Don't blame him one bit.
You hadn't heard the story. Tim had an incident at IRP a few races back. The car burst into flames. He went to lunch one day the next week, came back, and the crew had painted flames on the nose of the 55. He didn't like it at first, threatened to take him right off, but it seems to have turned his luck a little bit, so maybe he's going to leave him on there. Here's a look back through the field as you see everybody come racing off the turn, and there is Brad Loney. Loney holding on to 10th, fighting with Dave Sensiba in the number 6, and Junior Hanley, the Kendall Oil Port City 72 behind them. 23 cars now on the lead lap.
It certainly is a train here for the 10th spot. The top 8 cars run close together, and now we see Junior Hanley getting back in the mix, and Junior had come down pit lane twice already, so he is really on a charge. He's running in the 12th position.
And let's give a tip of the visor to the 47, Payne. He runs in 9th, Jim.
And in that 47 car, Paul Payne of Mountain, Minnesota, it's quite a unique race car. You see him get a little crossed up there. This is his own car. Ralph, the way he got this car is he poured a concrete floor in a sport court for Scott Lefevre, the car owner for Kevin Sawinski, and in return got a car minus motor for his services.
You're going to get a car to get. A Lefevre racing car is a pretty one to get. Dave Burns?
Mike Garvey has stepped out of his car now, and Mike, predictions were right from the crew. It is valve spring.
Yeah, it sure is. It's a shame. I mean, the Metro Milwaukee Auto Auction Pontiac was running pretty good. We had a good race car. We didn't qualify good, but I think we could have moved up okay. About 20 laps in, I felt start fluttering, and we kept trying to go, and it just kept getting worse and worse. We weren't going to blow the motor up. We're going to see if we can fix it and get back out.
And guys, Mike confirmed something I've been hearing, and that's that the new tires aren't making that much of a difference. In fact, Gary St. Amont's times aren't that much better than Scott Hansen, who's on the old rubber. So track position today is going to be everything.
Look at this. Payne gets shuffled to the inside. We haven't seen that. We've seen everybody passing like a freight train on the inside, not on the outside. And they're all going by, including Gary.
With 106 laps on Paul's tires, he cannot keep that car down. So once he got past on the outside, his car wants to drift up. He has to hold it down to make 2 lanes of racing, and he cannot get on that throttle as hard as he wants. So Paul Payne drifting back now to 15th spot.
And a change up front. What happened to Tim Sauter? It's now Scott Hansen leading and Mike Miller running in second. The 52, the white car out front. Miller giving chase in the old-style car. Sauter slides back to third. Then it's Mike Eddy and Rick Beebe coming in after that.
Tim Sauter got a bit sideways 2 laps ago off of turn number 2, and Hansen just stomped on that gas pedal of his Chevrolet and went down the backstretch with Mike Miller behind him. And they took the top 2 spots away from Tim Sauter, who had the lead from lap 86 to this point. So Sauter for the second time. See in the front now, runs third in that 55 Wares Chevrolet Pontiac.
Landis is 6th, Sperling is 7th. Knott is 8th, Loney is 9th, Sensiba is 10th. Then it's Hanley, St. Amant, Seneker, Sawinski, and Carlson back to 15th. Payne now listed in 16th after running in 9th. Well, here's how the lead changed hands.
Off of turn 4, Mike Miller looks to the inside of Hansen. Hansen then feels the heat and says, I'm going to the outside, and they see Tim fighting the wheel there, trying to hold the inside line, and Hansen had to smooth a line off of 2 and took the top spot.
110 laps completed here at LaCrosse. We were threatened with rain, but the great racing has kept the rain gods busy just watching the action. We'll be back with plenty more right after this. Well, things just got real interesting here. Tom Jones is now in the wall. There you see him over in turn number 4. And we had Mike Miller make the 5th lead change of the race just before Jones went into the wall, and Jonesy climbs out, so
good to see that.
Okay, yeah.
The tire itself peeled off the rim. That's how hard he hit the wall in turn 4.
Here's the lead change. Scott Hansen was leading, and look at Miller working that bottom groove.
Boy, he has that old-style Pontiac handling so well on the inside. He goes right inside of Hansen and makes the pass.
And makes it stick. Now Sauter will go down pit road, as does Beebe, Eddy, Landis, Knott, Loney, Sensiba, Seneker, Sawinski, Miller in as well. He's already been serviced and on his way back out. Smokestad, Hansen, everybody taking advantage of this yellow flag to go down pit road. And Jonesy took a beating. You can see him holding his chest a little bit there. Let's check in with Dave Burns from the pits.
Ralph, they moved the wall in turn number 1 in to accommodate the ASA cars going lower into turn number 1, but what that did is that narrowed up pit lane. Joe Knott had completed his pit service. He was coming through. Tim Sauter was pulling out. They did collide, and Joe went up on the barrier.
And Joe Knott will come back down pit lane to get that looked at, and as we mentioned, it gets awfully tight down here, and Steve Carlson knows that for a fact, and Knott again back to his pit.
Well, there is Joe Knott in pit road, and the crew will go to work on him, and we'll take an opportunity to step away just for a minute. We'll be back. We are back to LaCrosse Speedway, and we have a quick opportunity to, well, catch a word with Steve Carlson, courtesy of the folks at Racing Electronics. Let's touch base with him. Steve, Ralph Shaheen, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Steve, pit road looks like it's a little bit narrow. How tough is it out there today when you make your pit stops?
I've kind of banged the body up a little bit there on that last stop. It's just everybody's having some problems.
When you take a look at the racetrack, obviously you've had a lot of laps here. Is the track holding better than you thought it would? Is it not quite as greasy as you expected?
Well, right now it seems like pretty much a one-groove track, but we'll see how it works out here.
Okay, Steve, thanks, and best of luck to you today in the Trop Arctic car.
Thank you.
That's interesting, Jim. He seems to think it's a one-groove track, and we've seen a lot of guys passing high and low. Maybe Steve's car is just not handling the way he had hoped.
For the lead specifically, we've seen muscle moves. We see Scott Hansen go to the outside of Tim Sauter. We saw Gary St. Amant go to the outside to make a pass. We saw Mike Miller just simply get a better run off of turn number 2 to the inside of Scott Hansen, but it's all been quick passes. They power passed, and within half a lap, the pass is completed, which means that if it was a two-groove racetrack at this point, they might have stayed together for those 8, 9, 10 laps like we're really customarily seeing here in ASA this season.
Good point. Dave Burns with more on the tires.
Ralph, I took a look at the right rear tire on Tim Sauter's car. That's the barometer. That's the one that gets the most abuse and the one they really look at to see how the tire wear is going to be. And after 115 laps plus qualifying, it was beautiful. It looked really, really good. Hardly any wear on it, and they were very happy with what they saw.
Brandon Sperling leads this one right now, and this is a young driver in the 51 car that maybe could be a noisemaker. He's had some good runs at different points.
He pitted on lap, I believe, 69, according to my notes, and it means that he's at least got fresh right sides on there, and with the tire wear being as good as it is, John Boskin and the crew for that Blizzard Motorsports Chevrolet might have a good setup right now and decided to stay out. Most of the lead lap cars did pit under our 7th caution, but these teams have stayed out. Junior Hanley had pitted twice earlier. He said second, Harold Fair is third. Harold Fair is one of 3 drivers to complete all 10 of the races, and certainly shows in the points up to 8th now is that CarQuest AC-Delco Pontiac.
Ted Smokestad's listed in 18th right now. Dave, what's the story with him?
Earlier, Ralph, you guys talked about Alec Pinsino having that bad wreck in Chicago. Thankfully, he's okay. But you want to know what a nice guy he is? He put the Trim Blast Build-A-Mold decals on Ted's car a few weeks ago. And ever since then, Ted has been only finished out of the top 10 twice. Well, when he found out he wasn't going to make it to the race, he gave a check to Jonesy, who was coming through, and he said, give this check to Smokestad. I want him to keep running.
And Tom Jones actually lent Alec and his team his motorhome. So Tom Jones' motorhome here at the racetrack might have come in handy yesterday with the air conditioning, but Jonesy said, no, I need to get Alec and the guys back safely back home to Windsor, Ontario. So nice gesture.
Bill Baird, I'm sorry, Jim, back on pit road. And, you know, we also talked about Sperling at the beginning of the show, that he has had no laps on the racetrack. He leads it right now. In fact, the only way he got here was stopping by and borrowing the dually from Yale Connolly. The only problem is Yale doesn't know they have it. Yale's crew chief loaned him the rig. So Yale, if you're looking for your dually, it's here. They did promise to bring it back, though. So Brandon Sperling, who had no practice laps, did not get to qualify, now leads the LaCrosse 300. Let's see what he can do out front here. Green flag, and here we go.
Looking at the results from a year ago, Brandon only had 66 laps in the race last year. I believe he had problems in practice and qualifying a season ago. So truly baptism under fire in green flag conditions for this black 51 car.
He is ASA's latest version of Mark Martin. He is a workout fanatic. Harold Fair in the 81 car. With Noodleman and Miller all battling it out with more. Here's Dave.
Hanley's car has been running pretty well, guys. He's just a little bit pushy right now. They're still working to correct that, but he's got oil buildup on the rear end, the back bumper. They're not worried about that, though. They say it's just a few drops coming out of the rear end grease, and every time they come in here, they pick up a lot of dust, which just accentuates that visual that you see there, all the black on the back.
Junior Hanley's number 72, running in second place behind Brandon Sperling. And here comes the one they used to call Mad Dog to the inside. And Mad Dog cleanly passes old Brandon. Mad Dog really hasn't had a big bite this year. We've been waiting for Junior to get up to speed, maybe today.
He had a heck of a run at Indianapolis Raceway Park, ended up 4th. He was in a 3-car battle with Mike Miller to the very end. He won that 4th spot by inches. And I thought maybe this is the start of the old Junior Hanley that we've seen dominate short tracks throughout the country and Canada. He now takes the lead, becomes our 7th different leader. Lap 127, and Hanley, the Team Kendall Wild Pontiac Chevrolet, is on the point.
Well, Gary St. Amant just had bad turn of luck. He got hung out to dry in that orange and black number 7 Chevy, the wins car. He's back to 17th, lost about 7 or 8 positions as he got hung out to dry and everybody freight trained by him.
And he got shuffled off in the turns 1 and 2 where he could not get back on the gas pedal and lost all his valuable spots while everyone was hanging on and building momentum through turns 1 and 2. So we'll see if he can gather it back in.
I've seen a lot of guys take a turn up at the front. Some of them all shuffled back to the back now. Fight for second. Mike Miller inside in the old style Uniseal car. He'll slide past Brandon Sperling. The 51 drops back to 3rd.
Mike Miller only has about 30 laps on those right side Goodyear Eagle bias ply tires, so he easily makes the pass around Brandon Sperling.
Hansen now challenges for 3rd in the white 52. Then Beebe, Sauter coming up after him. And then it's a few car lengths back before we see Harold Fair, Brad Loney, and Sensibud. Harold Fair slows down, so maybe a problem with the 81. We'll keep an eye on that. Brandon trying to protect that bottom groove, but boy, to protect it here today, you really got to get low, because these guys are really finding some good handling on the bottom side of this racetrack. Now Hansen to the inside of Sperling. Completes the pass, and Beebe comes with him.
Look at Scott Hansen's right front corner on his front fender in the 52 car. That's from rooting some guys, and he's not done yet as he moves around the 51. He's got Rick Beebe in his rear view mirror now.
And as we said, Jim, that right front could be a powerful tool here today. We might see that used a lot more as we get into the later stages of this race. Sauter completing a pass now on Sperling. Sperling will drop all the way back to 6th position.
The Speedy Pop Popcorn driver Bill Baird has spent extra time in the pits to repair the right front corner of his car. He got involved with another car on pit lane with Joe Knott. They spent the time, made the time to make that right front back, at least a taped remnant of what used to be a right front fender.
Look at this fight between Mike Miller in the 18 and Junior Hanley in the 72. A couple of the older veterans of the tour having at it here once again.
They squared off at Indianapolis Raceway Park for a top 5 finish. Hanley won out over that one. See if Mike Miller can bounce back here and take the lead at a track that used to be his weekly home race.
Watch Mike Miller as we come down the front straightaway. He was really working that steering wheel as we went into 1 and 2 last time by. See if we can see it this time. Much smoother this time. Last time through there, boy, he was really sawing. He was all elbows as he had that 18 sideways, sliding through 1 and 2 as he came up inside of Junior Hanley.
He's drifted back now 2 car lengths, but now Scott Hansen has a rebirth and Rick Beebe on his tail. They're closing the gap now on the leaders. Hansen again going a little bit high behind the 18, the old style Pontiac of Mike Miller. Now Rick Beebe takes advantage as Hansen drifted high. The yellow 23, the St. Louis Gear Pontiac, goes to 3rd.
Problems for the AC-Delco CarQuest 81 of Harold Fairday.
Losing power right left, and they went underneath the hood finally. They did come in and fill it with fuel at first. They tried the ignition box and jiggled the coil wires. Now they're going to go underneath the air cleaner and see if they can figure out why Harold keeps losing power.
Tim Sauter having no problems with power in the 55. He's having a pretty good run. He's holding on to 5th right now, giving chase to Hansen.
Harold Fair, unfortunately, is not the only driver with problems. Andy Burgess broke an upper control arm after tagging the wall, and Ricky Bilderback in his second career ASA start. The former Rockford Speedway track champion had a header break, so he's retired the Finnegan's RV Center Chevrolet as well.
Hansen's had a pretty good season. He's had 4 top 5 finishes, but that's not what he wants. He wants more wins, and he wants a challenge for the championship as Sauter takes the spot away from Hansen.
Scott may have let him go. He pulled to the inside going down the front stretch. Scott may think tire wear will be more critical later on. I believe if Gary St. Amant could put it in shorter terms, he would say maybe he thought Tim Sauter may have been a rabbit early on. He's going to come back to him. Now Sauter has the momentum, has a quicker race car, so Hansen will let him go, and Hansen then will help and hope to conserve some more tire wear as they come off of turn 2.
Rick Beebe now involved in the fight for the lead as well. You see it, still Junior Hanley out front, then Mike Miller, that red 18. There he is, the Uniseal old style car. Look at Beebe powering by on the bottom.
Wow, did he turn left in a heartbeat or what?
Wow, right as Mike Garvey came out of pit road at the same time. That door really closed up on him, but he was able to slide through.
If you just joined us, Rick Beebe started this race from the pole position. He led the first 20 laps, then drifted back to 4th or 5th on one of the many shuffles we've seen up front. He now is 1 spot away from taking the lead back from Junior Hanley.
Beebe got his 3rd pole of the year this weekend. And now looking to go after Junior Hanley.
He's not wasting any time. This
None
car
at all.
is certainly the best working race car on the racetrack, is Rick Beebe's yellow 23.
He is flying. We saw the same thing out of him at IRP earlier this year, Jim, but he just wasn't able to put it together at the end of the race.
This Keokuk, Iowa-based team now with Terry Garrison calling the shots has Rick Beebe going to the inside for what could be another lead change.
It's going to happen eventually, Jim. You got to believe. He comes right up inside of Junior Hanley. Junior gives him the room, and Beebe takes the lead. And right behind him, Sauter slid past Miller to take over 3rd.
Tim Sauter advancing now in that Ware Chevrolet Pontiac. He's in that white, blue, and orange car, 3rd in line here.
Great racing with the AC-Delco Challenge Series. We sure hope you're enjoying it. Plenty more laps coming your way as the ASA rolls on at LaCrosse Speedway. Welcome back to LaCrosse Speedway. That is the ASA's pace car, the Pontiac Firebird. Been a little bit busy, but not right now, as we've got good, clean, green flag racing as Tim Sauter goes to work on Junior Hanley for 2nd place. I had an opportunity to talk to Jim Sauter in Milwaukee earlier this year, and Jim was saying, just wait. They've got this car back to basics, and my boy knows some of these tracks that we're coming to, and he really feels comfortable at them, and he's coming to the front. And if he wasn't ever correct about him here today, as you take a look at the mid-race summary, as this fight for 2nd continues.
Still have 20 cars on lead lap. There have been 6 leaders with 8 lead changes.
Oh, he gets into him there, and that's going to send Mad Dog into a frenzy and around as well.
Caution is out, Ralph.
Well, let's see, 155 laps, I guess, in that neighborhood being completed now. Let's see what happens on pit road. Some guys, Jim, might be able to nurse it home from here, you think?
Well, we were looking at Kevin Swinski and Mike Eddy coming through the field. They were up to 9th and 10th position. They make their final pit stop here. And if they're among the lead serial and the lead lap cars that are coming down pit lane, this might be the last shot for getting those tires situated.
Here's another look at it. Sauter closing real quick in turn 3 all day. Gets into Junior, gets off to gas, tries to allow him to catch it. No catching that one. Mike Miller goes high and gets around.
Rough break for Hanley. We can take another look here, and you see Sauter carried so much speed into the turn. Junior Hanley trying to get through that corner on the bottom. Couldn't do it.
And Tim Sauter has been absolutely flying in turn 3 all day. I mean, if this thing comes down to a final fight coming off that last corner, he might have a shot at it. It's Dave Burns.
Standing by in Rick Beebe's pit, the yellow 23 comes rolling in here. Terry Garrison holding the pit board. He throws to the side, clears some debris from the front. They're going to go to the left side and add fuel to the St. Louis Gear Royal Machine Grand Prix. They get the left sides on. Tim Sauter pitting right behind him. The jack is down. Mike Miller's going to win the race off of the pits, and Rick Beebe's going to be number 2. Sauter still.
And the 55 car needing a push now to get started. Some help from BB's crew to get him going, too.
And just enough as he fired it up, and it spit to life just at the end of pit lane.
Well, while they line him back up, we'll take a break. Some of this huge crowd here at LaCrosse Speedway enjoying it. We'll be back with plenty more. Don't go away. Commercial transportation for this telecast has been provided by Ryder, the official transportation company for Opryland. We are back at LaCrosse Speedway. That's exactly right. If you've never been here, I got to tell you, there is some absolutely spectacular countryside in this area, and a big problem with a wheel, Dave.
Yeah, that's Brad Loney's right front wheel. That's pretty important if you're trying to go into the turn and not hit the wall. They thought they had a tire going down. It was, in fact, a broken wheel.
And Dave, broken parts for Tom Jones is what put him in the wall as well?
Yeah, right front hub on Jonesy's car sent him into the wall and hurt him a little bit in the ribs, but otherwise he's up and walking around okay.
And the one thing you don't want to do, Dave, is try to get water and hit the ignition switch at the same time.
You're exactly right. Happened to Tim Sauter. They handed him a water bottle and he hit the ignition switch, turned his car off. They had to refire it and then get him pushed out.
All right, Dave, thank you. We're back to green with Dave Sensiba. Another Dave out front. This is a guy, God, does he need to find victory lane.
He had a great run. He's got 7 top 10 finishes, but the first 7 races were good to Dave Sensiba. Then the trouble started. Then he kept surmounting trouble. He had a knee injury at I-70 Speedway with a hard crash, running in the 4th position. He's battled back from that. He's been at the point in some races, and certainly this team has been extremely strong early in the season. They're trying to bounce back from that. They've got 2 redesigned race cars. At one point, they had to take 3 cars and put them into 1. And this is the best gift he can give Patrick Hauser in that Leroy Troop-owned team, giving him the lead here on lap 163.
You hear the spotter talking to him. With more on Dave Sensiba, our Dave. Dave?
Yeah, Patrick Hauser actually has a ton of his family in the stands today. His hometown of Cashton, Wisconsin is just about 15 miles from here, so they really want to do well today for those that know and love Pat Hauser, the crew chief.
Sensiba did finish 7th here a year ago, Ralph, and had a very strong run. At the time, he was 6th in AC-Delco Challenge Series points, and he's trying to get back in the top 5 this season. After 10 events, he's been drifted back out of the top 5, and Pontiac pays out a lot of money each quarter or every 5 events here in the AC-Delco Challenge Series, and he certainly is eyeing that as well as this starts the 3rd quarter of the 30th American Speed Association racing season.
What do you think we got to do to get this guy into victory lane as you watch this fight for 5th now between Mike Miller and Rick Beebe? What do you think's missing with Sensiba?
He's been close. He and Patrick Hauser are the only full-time crew members for Leroy Troop's operation. Leroy had long time enjoyed success with Butch Miller and Glenn Allen Jr. And those guys had 3 or 4 key crew members that may have not been full-time in the shop, but it's a matter of finding that. This team created a pact very late in the season. They, I believe, January or February is when they finally inked the deal with Leroy Troop to become the owner, and Engineered Polymer Products came on board with Bob Dorstwitz's company, but it came together so late they couldn't get some of the crew members they wanted, and Sensiba has really been fortunate to run as well as he has, and it shows how much he knows and as well as Patrick Hauser knows in the shop to prepare this Pontiac.
Sensiba being warned about St. Amant on the inside. And Brad Loney slides through the infield over in turn 4 as St. Amant takes the lead.
No caution.
To give you an idea how Sensiba's been running this year, he's finished on the lead lap 8 times. He's got 4 top 5s and 7 top 10s. So he's been right there. He just hasn't found his way into victory lane yet.
And what has hurt him is when he's not finished top 10, 35th with an accident at IRP, and then followed it up with another crash and finished 22nd at I-70.
This is big for Gary St. Amant, too, to be up front. He needs this. He needs a win to keep chasing Kevin Sawinski, who right now sits in 11th here today.
Kevin Sawinski pitted very early in this event and has been battling back. He's gotten up to the 9th, 10th position, but has not been able to get to the front. He has yet to lead a lap. He's done that in 9 of 10 events this year. Lead a lap, get 5 points. He's led the most laps in 7 of the 10 events this year, but Sawinski's not the dominant Sawinski we've seen this far in the season. He's mired back there running with Joe Knott, and now Tim Sauter back in the mix as those guys pitted under our most recent caution. But as far as Gary goes, he's not been out of the top 5, where Sawinski has not been really in the top 10 all day.
Good fight for third. Payne in the black 47 giving chase to Landis in the 07 car.
Jack Landis in his sophomore season in the Adirondack International Speedway Line-Decker excavating Ford for team owner Noah Yoder out of Ohio. Masto Toy also involved with that team. He hands out little collector cars to all the kids in the pre-race autograph session. It's a big hit. Jack loves kids and doesn't mind doing that whatsoever.
Miller right behind them. Mike runs in 5th as this fight for 3rd continues, and Beebe coming with it.
Paul Payne runs 6th. Paul Payne in the 47 car. He is a weekly competitor at Elko Speedway. He's had a track championship at Raceway Park in Minnesota. Ran on and off the last couple of seasons with Mark Kaloff, and after pouring the floor for Scott Lefever's Sport Court, got his own race car in return for payment. He's put it together and has his short track crew with him here today. So the Minnesota driver really impressing a number of people. Justice Brothers on the car, and Jim Daly's pit equipment are what make Paul Payne run so well thus far. He's a neighbor of Jim Daly, the car owner of the familiar yellow and blue number 2 car we see occasionally here in the AC-Delco Challenge Series.
Oh boy, they back up a little bit behind Payne, but Gary St. Amant continues to lead here as we work lap 177 of the scheduled 300. The LaCrosse 300 continues to wind down here on T&M Motorsports. That's a look at some of the great action we've had early on here today at the LaCrosse 300. This is a fight for 4th with Mike Miller and Rick Beebe. Steve Carlson not far behind this group. There he is.
They have stormed through the field route. They came in and made pit stops along with the 87 car just out of view of Steve Carlson. They have methodically picked off at least 1 car per lap as they made their way back through. I believe there were about 12 cars from the pace car on back that did not pit under the last caution. They picked off all but about 4 of those cars as they came back out from the pits with fresh rubber and really have worked well through the field. We see now Mike Miller to the inside and Rick Beebe faster at this point. The race goes around the outside, and Steve Carlson will try to follow in the Trop Arctic. Clean burn Pontiac.
Great racing. And we heard Howie Leto on the radio say he put the same setup back in the car that they had early on today. So maybe this is going to get him up to the front for Carlson.
And Steve Carlson, who has raced 100-lap events here, he's run the Oktoberfest event, which is a super late model special, I believe, in over 30 years running. Certainly knows how to run longer races here. Howie Leto, the crew chief for Steve Holtzhausen in his rookie run. Pat Schauer, we already mentioned, certainly knows how to get things done. He was Scott Hansen's crew chief and Ted Musgrave's crew chief when they ran for this team, Baker Motorsports, based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Carlson in 5th right now. St. Amant, Sensible, Landis, Beebe, Carlson. That's your top 5. Mike Miller, Hansen, Eddy. Mike Eddy up to 8th. Bob Seneker hanging in there in 9th, and Sawinski in 10th. Remember Seneker winning this one last year after having tied off the brake line?
Yeah, he was in contention, but it wasn't until very late in the going. He was running the latter half of the top 10, then he started picking him off, and we were surprised as anyone that he did so well and came out the winner of that race a year ago. 82 career victories, still searching for his first in 22 races is Bob Seneker, driver of that JR Automation Ford.
So Landis, Beebe, and Carlson running in the top 5. The LaCrosse Speedway fans enjoying an afternoon of the AC-Delco Challenge Series competition. Well, Wisconsin isn't only known for cheese, Jim. It's also known for the world's largest six-pack.
LaCrosse, Wisconsin is the home of Heilemann Brewing, an old-style beer. That's the world's largest six-pack. Ralph, you want to hear some numbers? That's those 6 cans right there hold 22,200 barrels, which is 444,000 gallons. And will keep one person drinking a 6-pack a day for 3,351 years.
You're making me thirsty.
That's a lot of beer.
And they're also the sponsor of Mike Miller and the 18 car, who's drifting back a little bit, Jim.
He was right up there with Rick Beebe and Steve Carlson, and it's been about 10 laps now where you see that car kind of folding over on the right front a little bit, perhaps heated up the tires a little bit too much. He's stayed on the inside line all afternoon, but he's drifted back into 5th. He was up to 3rd, and now he's trying to hang on. It may need a pit stop to adjust that Uniseal old-style Pontiac to get it back in the running.
Now let's take you back through the entire field here. This is Gary St. Amant, who sits second in the point standings and is our leader here right now in the wins number 7. The Chevy having a pretty good run. Back behind him, the 6th car, Dave Sensiba. And there he is right there as we pan back to him. Dave running second, and actually those two drivers are in opposite cars from last year. It's kind of interesting to see those two running like that. And Rick Beebe right behind them in the 23 car. Having a pretty good run this afternoon. He's up to third. He's been quick all day. We figure he's going to be a contender before this is over.
Steve Carlson runs fourth. We mentioned he lives 3 blocks away, and another 3 blocks down off of turn number 1 is where his shop is for his local short track car, and certainly has put this car to work with crew chief Howie Leto, and currently running the 4th spot.
Then it's that old style number 18, the Uniseal sponsored car of Mike Miller. What's the story on him, Dave?
He is real tight. Now, they had a different tire brought in today. They put it in the lineup back here. They said if he's real tight, they'll go to this little stagger tire right here. Has a bleeder valve and everything in it already, and it's even got the Goodyear sticker on it, but I don't know if he's that tight.
My buddy's race go-kart tires about that size.
Anything to get you to the front. Jack Landis, the 07 car, runs in 6th position. The Adirondack Speedway.
Good run for Jack. Looking for his first top 5 of the season, Ralph.
He's been quick. He just hasn't been around at the finish where he wanted to be. Mike Eddy, the 7-time champ, runs in 7th after having the problems at the beginning of the race. It'll be interesting to see if he can make his way up into this. And Bob Seneker right behind him in the 84 car, looking for victory 83.
He's only found the podium once this year. That's a 3rd place finish at Jefferson, Georgia. So certainly Seneker and Eddy, as they make their way through the top 10, haven't done a heck of a lot this season. Unfortunately, their winless streaks are over 22 races, and Eddy hasn't won in 23 tries.
The Kenny Schrader owned number 52 of Scott Hansen runs in 9th position, Dave.
Ralph, and look at how far that car is leaned over. As Mike Eddy has problems now, he goes down to the low side and looks like he may be coming in as well. But Scott Hansen is leaning far over to the right. They broke a right-hand sway bar bolt, and the sway bar was leaning down on the track. The crew couldn't believe Scott didn't hear it, but they also didn't tell him about it. They tried to tighten up the split, in other words, decrease the stagger to tighten him up a bit, but they didn't tell Scott. And Scott came across the radio and said, guys, that was critical, need to know information. We think they're still friends, and they're going to try to get that fixed, but still, the sway bar is down on the right side.
Well, Mike Eddy is dropping like a rock as you continue to watch Scott Hansen, so maybe we'll get a word on what is up with that. Behind Hansen, there you see Mike. He is dropped all the way back to 12th now. And we'll see if we can find out what is going on there. Meanwhile, Kevin Sawinski right there, the number 1 car, the series points leader, has fought his way up to 9th again here, Jim. He's not out of this yet.
He's been in 9th, though, and we're used to seeing Kevin Sawinski pick off cars like they're in the 2nd gear, and he's running in the top gear. He's not been the Sawinski we've seen this season, but a 9th place finish is, if he finishes there, would tie his worst finish of the season.
In 10th is Joe Knott, and there's Sawinski's Crazies. The Bumblebee bunch, they all dress up in yellow and black. Joe Knott in 10th, the Valvoline Raby Ford, car number 48, getting ready for his first Busch Grand National start coming up this week at IRP. And right behind him is Tim Sauter, who sits in 11th position.
Sauter held the lead for 2 occasions this race and looked to be the strongest driver when he came off the truck and backed it up with an early race lead. Harold Fairnow showing a bit of smoke on the front stretch, but we see Sauter handling beautifully now, maybe biding his time and saving those tires for the end.
12th right now is listed as Mike Eddy, but it's dropping in a hurry, and you're actually going to see Mike Garvey now in the next car on the track, although Garvey is laps down. He is listed in 26th position. The guy who won the Arco race yesterday is Ted Smokestad. Lost it and gathered it up in turn 1 as you watched Garvey's Tony's Myers Pizza car going around. There is Smokestad, who is in 16th, and now the caution flag comes out as there is debris left on the track, even though Smokestad saved it.
One group inhaled by this large crowd at LaCrosse Fairgrounds Speedway as he was sideways in turn 1 in front of heavy traffic. And he squared it back up, nearly hitting the inside wall, and we see the damage there on the 32 car and the debris over in turn 2 bringing out the caution.
So Ted will be making his way to pit road. One of the things interesting about Teddy today is He found his way into victory lane. Well, he hasn't won. Let's take a look at this replay first, and I'll finish this story off for you.
Sideways here. In front of
Junior.
Brandon Sperling, and yeah, he wasn't quite righted there either.
He was right in front of Junior Hanley.
Right behind Johnny Spock coming into the turn, got on the brakes, and Brandon Sperling made slight contact there, and Ted.
Look at Junior just sliding by.
He did a great job of saving that car.
To the leader's pit, Dave Burns.
Gary St. Amant had great pit work earlier today. They go to the right side for the last time, clean the windshield, and a little bit longer. Now he's down the way. St. Amant gets it out of here. Mike Eddy's problem, guys, they believe he has a brake line that is broken. They'll be looking at that when he comes down now.
There's Smokestack's pit, and if we can get a little bit of a wider shot of it, you'll notice it's actually victory lane for LaCrosse Speedway. It's actually checkered flagged and all. That is where, when they run their late model shows here, the guys would pull into victory lane. So Ted Smokestack, one way or the other, has found his way to victory lane here today. Now, speaking of Mike Eddy, we saw Bob Seneker win this race with brake problems last year.
Indeed. He mentioned he had to pinch the brake line off very early and came back through and methodically made his way. I think he made a great call on the last pit stop as well. That paid off because teams that stayed out were drifting up, and Seneker was able to go underneath. And we may see that yet this afternoon this season.
So the Good Wrench Service Plus crew, under the guidance of Howard Thomas, goes to work. Steve Carlson, our current leader, back out on the racetrack. We're coming back to LaCrosse right after this. Hope you're with us. We're green, and Steve Carlson in that white 87, trying to put as much space as he can between him and second place man Gary St. Amant, who's coming right behind in the orange and black number 7.
Boy, what a move he made to get through the lap traffic, Ralph, and cars ahead of him. That was a white knuckle move, if nothing else. He went inside of Bill Baird and really let it all hang out coming into turns 1 and 2. Now off of turn 4. St. Amant tracking him down.
Good action here as Beebe now comes up alongside too as they all go past Billy Turner. Look at the fighting going on back behind them with Seneker and Sensiba. Right in here, look at this. Seneker in the 84, Sensiba in the 6. Mike Miller's in there, Sauter's in there, Sawinski's in there. This is a packed back and forth position. Sensiba is credited with that spot right now.
Way to straightaway, Ralph. It certainly is changing.
And look at this, a fight for the lead. St. Amant inside of Carlson. Can he get it by the time they get to 1? Side by side, not leaning on each other. Plenty of room. St. Amant completes the pass.
Clear.
Carlson cuts down to keep Beebe from coming through.
And coming up on Mike Eddy, who reportedly had some brake problems. Like GM Goodwrench Service Plus Pontiac to the inside, letting the leaders go by.
Mike listed at 20th right now. Another frustrating day for him.
I mentioned earlier these guys have not done a lot this season. They're still top 10 in points, just meaning ASA longtime veterans Bob Seneker and Mike Eddy. They're just having that kind of season. Both these drivers outside the top 5 in points, and
What'd you say, Steve?
Eddie has battled back for 23rd in points, but he finally get to 10th.
You heard Carlson talking to Howie Ledow, and I think from the looks of things, he can't run on the bottom of the racetrack. He's struggling to get down there. 9 leaders this afternoon, the most we've seen all season.
And 4, just try and save yours and stay with them if you can.
Sounds like Howie talking to Steve about the tires. We'll keep
the 2 guys ahead of you were the 2 fastest cars on the racetrack before the pit stop. Got about a 10-car length behind you, so take it easy.
That's Howie Ledow's voice that you hear talking to him, and then also the voice of the spotter, letting Carlson know exactly where he is on the track. And you heard, Jim, he was struggling to keep up this pace.
Well, case in point, he did not pit on this last caution, and Gary St. Amant, Rick Beebe, and a number of other teams did, and they had the lead, got the 5 points to Steve Carlson and the Baker Enterprises team, but they're trying to struggle here. They thought they had a decent setup, but that fresh rubber does mean a lot, as we saw Gary St. Amant and Rick Beebe both work around Carlson rather easily.
Look at Joey Knott trapped on the bottom in the 48. He's got Hansen on the outside, Baird just in front of him, and this whole pack is going by him, and Joe was listed at 9th.
3 laps ago, Hansen was on the inside and Knott was on the outside. So Scott using the outside groove, muscled his way up in front of Junior Hanley. Saw Bill Baird ahead of him a little bit off the pace and used that pick to get that spot on Hanley, and now Joe Knott.
Hansen, listed in 9th, had a bunch of tire smoke on the right front, but that seems to be going away a little bit. There you see it again.
That A-arm now, I believe the tire is rubbing on the fender of that Chevy Monte Carlo for Hansen in the Schrader Racing 52.
As he leans it over, turning to the left, it starts to puff up more and more. He's got Seneker listed in 8th on the outside of him, the Bluebird. And Junior Hanley in the 72 making his way back up. He's in 9th now.
Seneker getting shuffled back. Now he went high in turn 2.
Oh, we got another car way up high. He's going to save it. That's the 09 car. I thought we were looking at maybe another yellow Andy Burgess.
Great save. But
and Loney comes past Seneker.
Bob continues to drift back. It'll take him at least 2 laps to get back up to where he was speed-wise, because he did get high in turn 2. Got some debris, some of that rubber buildup off of the tires on the racetrack. They pile up, they call them marbles.
We talked about the points at the beginning of the day. St. Amant leads this one, so that's exactly what he needs. What he doesn't want to hear, though, is that Kevin Sawinski, who leads the point standings, is listed in 7th and running pretty good right now. Lead fight. To the bottom, Beebe on the outside. Gary St. Amant sliding those cars, drifting them through turn 4, up the front straightaway and down into turn 1. Beebe will take the lead.
For the 3rd time today, Rick Beebe has held the point unofficially. 14 lead changes now, Ralph, in 229 laps.
If you love short track stock car racing, you're seeing a good one here today.
We mentioned the tire wear on Steve Carlson's car. He might have let those guys go by because they had the fresh rubber. He's now reeling the leaders back in again with Tim Sauter in pursuit.
Well, we heard a little while ago from the spotter that Sauter was 10 car lengths back. Well, he made that ground up in a hurry, didn't he?
Side-by-side action, even on a super speedway or a short track, will bunch up the cars right behind it. Look at Tim Sauter with a muscle move. Clear.
Carlson loses another spot. He's back to 4th. And Beebe is really opening up a lead, Jim.
He really has put it on Gary St. Amant. He's got a 1.2 second lead now. Almost a full second, I should say. Maybe a 1.2 second lead shortly. He was up to a 2 second lead prior to our last caution on lap 154. And trying to build back and get more cars a lap down that St. Louis gear. Royal Machine Pontiac, he kind of drifted off dirt tracking off at that turn round.
Steve Carlson sits in 4th position as the LaCrosse 300 continues. And Gary St. Amant's crew watching over, hoping their driver can get back up into the lead. A bunch of Sawinski's crazies having a good time. And being a member of his fan club is a popular thing these days, as Kevin Sawinski leads the point standings and runs 8th here today. We've had 13 lead changes among 9 drivers. 16 changes among 8 drivers at 5 Flags is the most we've had so far this year. And Joe Knott on pit road with big problems to the left front of the 48.
Result of heavy contact with Junior Hanley while racing for position on the racetrack. We see the right side of Hanley's car. The right rear fender is tucked in, the right front corner, so it looks like they may have made contact down the entire side of each other's race car off of, I believe, turn 4 a couple of laps ago.
Junior hangs on to 9th. Let's look at what happened here. Junior's the white 72, and Joe Knott's just in front of him. He got loose.
Joe got real loose and got tagged.
Whoa, tagged, he got drilled.
Left front corner knocked off of Joe Knott's car, and Junior Hanley soldiers on, but Brad Loney was behind Junior Hanley at that point in the race, and now he's got about a 20 car lengths on Junior, so we know Junior is not quite up to speed.
That's a fight for 9th with Hanley and Landis. And Bob Seneker has pulled down pit road as you look at the damage to the Team Kendall Port City number 72. It's a big problems for the Bluebird, the guy that won this race last year. We've seen problems develop also lately for Brad Loney, as he has also gone down a lap, as has Seneker.
Seneker just gone down a lap, and he was running, I believe, in the 11th position prior to these problems.
There's your leader, the yellow 23, Rick Beebe, sailing right along right now, Jim, and I do mean sailing. He has got a healthy lead.
3.5 seconds on Gary St. Amant does Rick Beebe have, plus 4 lap cars.
And that's monstrous here today.
The winning margin in 1981 was 9.7 seconds. Jim Sauter over Dick Trickle. That race run on Labor Day or thereabouts in 1981. And we've not had a winning margin over 2 seconds all season long here in ASA, and this is the 11th race of the year. We may be looking at the 7th different winner in 11 races.
And the biggest and best fight on the racetrack is this one right now. Gary St. Amant with second. He's the orange and black number 7. Mike Miller, the red 18 in third position. Sauter in fourth behind them. And Carlson and Sensiba. Here comes Miller inside in the 18 car. Sauter trying to come with him. Miller pushes him up high, and that's even going to open the door for Sauter, who has to jump on the brakes all of a sudden. Miller takes the spot away from St. Amant, and everybody else is unable to capitalize. Now Miller starts to pull away a little bit from St. Amant. Let's see if he can run clean from him. Gary doesn't seem to be handling as well as he was before as Sauter closes up on him. And this is not what St. Amant needs, because Sawinski is up to 8th on the track. Gary's listed in 3rd, and looks like Sauter's going to get him eventually if he can. So Gary needs a bigger gap between him and Kevin, and not getting him right now.
In the big picture, the AC-Delco Challenge Series awards points per position, 5 per position for the top 10. So you're obviously losing 5 points a position in the finishing order for the top 10 drivers. So if you finish first, you're obviously going to gain the most points, 175.
And problems for the winningest driver in the history of the AC-Delco Challenge Series, Bob Seneker on pit road. We'll hear from him when we come back to LaCrosse Speedway. Less than 50 laps remaining here, the scheduled 300 at the LaCrosse 300. Rick Beebe in that yellow 23 leading it. He's working his way through lap traffic right now.
Beebe now in traffic with Ted Smokestead, the 32 car. Smokestead currently in 12th position, about to go a lap down.
13 cars on the lead lap, and one of them not there is Bob Seneker, Dave.
Yeah, Bob, we thought maybe you were kind of playing the lay back and wait game all day, but did you have a car before you broke the spindle in the front?
Yeah, it was decent. I don't know if I could have got to the front, but one of those days.
How in the world does the thing handle when you break a spindle on the left front like that?
Makes it push real bad. Middle of the corner, car won't turn.
Okay, and that's obviously why he brought it in.
Rick Beebe continuing to work his way through traffic, and he's caught up to Junior Hanley now. Hanley is listed in 10th, so I'm telling you, Jim, Beebe is flying.
Hanley has those problems. He's a little bit off the pace, but you're right, that Smokestead at full song now goes a lap down to the St. Louis Gear Royal Machine Pontiac team based out of Keokuk, Iowa. Hometown at least 3 or 4 legendary stock car drivers, including Don White. That's the home for Dan Hodges and Hodges Motorsports. And this leading team.
This is the one thing Mike Miller, who's sitting in second, needs right now with just 40 to go. He needs Rick to get hung up in traffic, as on a clear racetrack, that 23 is a rocket ship and nobody can catch him. If he can get hung up in traffic, where there's great 2-3 wide racing going on, maybe Mike will be able to close in and do something.
Ted Smokestead, that build-em-all Pontiac behind Rick Beebe, has gotten around Junior Hanley. It was a chore until Beebe plowed the way through. That was a battle for the 9th position. Now those drivers are a lap behind Beebe.
Here's a fight back here between Gary St. Amant and Tim Sauter. That is for 3rd.
St. Amant drifting high again. Sauter able to stay low using the apron of the racetrack. There are some rumble strips down there, but doesn't seem to affect the handling. The TG Sports 55 of Sauter.
Gary is doing a great job driving that. Oh, look at Sensiba get high, and Carlson trying to get inside. Carlson working that bottom groove. Can't get it. Hansen around on the outside. That's a fight in 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Hansen's car continues to smoke because there's a right front suspension component, the right front, I believe the sway bar bolt fell out earlier in the race, so that car continues to smoke. He has a right front damage, but we just heard Bob Seneca say with the left front, it creates a push. With Hansen, it may create more roll, more weight on the right front, but he's able to hold on to it thus far and stay on lead lap, Ralph.
And you see Sawinski's black #1 behind Carlson. That's a fight for 7th, and Joe Knott's day is done. Dave?
Yeah, Joe, and I'm sure you felt kind of like a pinball out there today. How rough was it for you?
Oh, it's getting rough. You know, our team's been struggling a little bit this year, and we're just racing hard, trying to get the best position we could get, and possibly was trying just a little bit too hard out there. And got by Junior, not the way I wanted to. I accidentally got into him, and I tried to go into the corner, got loose, he got into me. So we're going to go back out, finish some laps.
All right, Joe's going to get back out right now. They're on their way.
Mike Garvey back on pit road as well. He has struggled all day in the 8 car as Carlson and Sawinski continue to fight. And up in front of all that action is Rick Beebe. We're coming back to more LaCrosse 300. Some of the scenery around LaCrosse, Wisconsin. We're right on the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota. Beautiful valleys here as the Mississippi River comes up through the gorges up to LaCrosse. You see some of the hillsides surrounding here. Absolutely spectacular countryside. And out front enjoying the view is Rick Beebe, leading in his 5th race of 1997. Sits 4th in the point standings. Still looking to find his way to victory lane here today. Just 25 laps to go. I thought he was going to get a win at IRP, and he had troubles at the end there. And let's interval back now. Show you, there is Mike Miller. He runs in 2nd in that old style Uniseal, number 18.
We thought he may have had some problems, but he said the car was tight, and now with the tire wear, it's seemed like it's coming back to Mike Miller. He's up to 2nd spot in that old style Pontiac local brewery, sponsoring that team. Old style, the #1 beer in Chicago as well.
Miller going past Mike Eddy. He seems to be having a pretty easy run, but it's just that Rick Beebe seems so awesome. Let's find out exactly how far back he is. 1.3 seconds. All right, let's see if he's picking up ground or losing ground. We'll see if we can get another interval. He is going to be gaining ground on him now because Beebe getting hung up a little bit in traffic. But now, of course, that means that Mike Miller's going to have to get through the same traffic, so that could balance back out. Here it is. Yes, he was definitely picking up time. Now the key is going to be for Mike to get through this traffic as quick as he can.
And Rick Beebe just cleared that traffic, so we may see that stay about a second or so as Mike tries to get on through. Hard into turn number 3.
Bill Barrett around over in turn 2 into the infield. Let's see if that brings out a yellow or not. Not so far. There he is. He's back on the track, and we keep racing.
Bill Barrett celebrating a birthday yesterday. The Speedy Pop Popcorn Chevrolet. Remember the last couple of races were running the 30th anniversary logo, a number for the American Speed Association. Back to the familiar number 26.
Oh, he's got definite handling problems. You can see it pushing up the racetrack as he banged into pain. I got a feeling he'll be visiting pit road here shortly.
A couple of other drivers of note. Justin Dirksen, his first ASA start, is out with motor problems and an alternator problem. Has sidelined El Reno, Oklahoma's Billy Turner. He's behind the wall for the duration.
Payne is running in 15th right now. He's in that 47 car. Landis is in 9th. Sperling fighting right there with him for position. And Smokestad is in 11th, so that's a good fight going on there. Noodleman is in that 21 car. He's listed in 18th. Now here's the fight for 3rd. Gary St. Amant in the 7 and the 55 of Sauter, the 52 of Hansen, and the 6 of Sensiba. Sauter gets a good run down the back straightaway, and he's been real quick right here in turn 3.
This has been a broken record for Sauter to try to get underneath Gary St. Amant. This is a good run here again, but Gary powers with that Chevrolet motor under the hood, down the front stretch, and gets that position back.
Oh, and he goes up high again. I'll tell you what, Gary St. Amant is doing a great job of taking what looks like a very ill-handling race car and hanging on to 3rd. As far as the point standings, Gary sits in third, and Sawinski, the point leader, runs in eighth. So Gary really needs that third place.
Gary has been running the AC-Delco Challenge Series full-time for the last 12. This is his 12th season, taking over the seat of Bud St. Amont's car from Don Gregory, and he has really learned how to work these race cars, letting it drift through the corner, maintaining speed. He doesn't mind going up a groove or two. The car may not be perfect, but St. Amant has figured out how to make these Chevrolets work this year. 2 wins already for the driver, who has secured 3 pole positions and is always a threat. Matter of fact, he shared the front row with Rick Beebe this afternoon to start this event.
Of course, Sauter needs a good finish. He's 4th. Carlson, who leads the Pat Schauer rookie points, is in 7th.
This is a battle for position that has been ongoing the last 25 laps. Scott Hansen now behind Tim Sauter. Dave Sensiba right in there. Behind them is the pair of Steve Carlson and Kevin Sawinski for position.
And Hansen is 3rd in the point standing. So all of these drivers, even Sensiba, he's 6th in the point standings. They all need these points as we have reached the halfway point in the season. The tour will be moving on to Berlin Raceway. Coming up next, going back to Grand Rapids for the second stop at the Grand Rapids, Michigan racetrack.
Then the infamous Anderson 400, Widener Chevrolet presenting that race on Saturday evening, August 16th in Anderson, Indiana, the home of ASA. August 24th, the Milwaukee Mile, live here on TNN. Sunday afternoon, August 24th.
That's our next TNN live coverage for you of the AC-Delco Challenge Series. St. Amant hanging on. You hear Larry Reefer talking to Dave Sensiba, telling him there's 10 laps to go. See how long Gary St. Amant can keep Sauter back there. Beebe is just pulled away from this one. There's no fight for the lead yet. So we'll keep watching this battle here for 3rd. This has got the best action.
Moved around Billy Turner's car half a lap ago as he continues to make way for the leaders. Alternator problems for Turner, and he's down a number of laps, but back on the racetrack. Very impressed with Scott Hansen's run. The right front sway bar bolt has fallen off. The right front of the car is no longer supported. The shock is not doing its job.
We've seen Hansen do things like that in the past.
Kenley, North Carolina last year,
yes,
looking for the point championship potentially. Top 5. The right front, the actual left front on that car was caved in, and he handled that car for over 200 laps with the left front wheel at about a 45-degree angle. So talk about tough short track racers. Hansen among the best.
That's why Kenny Schrader picked him to run his car. Here's a fight for the lead, and we've got one as Mike Miller catches up and gets Rick Beebe loose. We are inside 10 laps to go, closing in on just about 5 to go. Can Mike Miller muster up a charge here to get around Rick Beebe? Both cars running good on the bottom. Junior Hanley will be a lap car that they'll come upon.
Mike Miller has 4 top 5 finishes to his credit this season. Had a suspension problem last race, so trying to bounce back is the underlying word here as he's really putting pressure on Beebe.
And 3rd place goes side by side, so all of a sudden we're going to have some great fights to the finish. Sauter inside of St. Amant once again. Into 3 where he's been so strong all day. He pushes up into St. Amant. Hard on the gas on that out groove is Gary St. Amant. He's going to hold on to 3rd for at least another lap. Oh, and Beebe goes into the wall on the front straightaway and climbs the pit wall. Rick Beebe up on the pit straightaway wall.
The leaders are trying to get by Junior Hanley. Hanley off of turn number 4 was in the middle of the racetrack. Beebe looked low. Mike Miller looked low at the very same time, this being the result.
Well, we have seen this once before in ASA racing. It happened to Bob Seneker and Joe Knott on the last lap at Jennerstown a couple of years back. The only difference was Seneker took that very road where you see Rick Beebe across the finish line to claim the win. Today, Beebe's coming up about 3 laps short.
Unbelievable.
Now what do you do? Look at how that car is hung up there. Even if they can get it off there cleanly, you got to wonder about the damage to the underside of that race car.
Terry Garrison wants to get this car pushed back up, but it will take more than...
Jim, I mean, just taking it off the wall, it could come down awfully hard. They got to be a little bit careful with that. They set it back down. The wall is a little curved there, and it's able to roll down off. And you can hear this LaCrosse crowd cheering on the efforts of Rick Beebe. Watch this again. Here's Mike Miller. This is going into turn 3. He's in the red 18. Junior Hanley, the 72, is a lap car. Beebe gets into him.
Beebe hit him just enough to get underneath him, and as he's going into the inside of Hanley, they make contact. Beebe could have gone in head first into that wall, and he spun to the inside and ended up parking it up on the wall there. But what a tough break for Rick Beebe.
Oh, and look at Rick Beebe and Junior Hanley having a little bit of a conversation over this. Well, I'm sure Rick probably feels Junior should have just gotten out of the way. I'm sure that's what he thinks as well. This one coming to a close. We'll have it for you. Don't go away. We're back to green with 2 laps to go as Mike Miller leads it. Rick Beebe listed in 8th after an amazing get-together with Junior Hanley, who was a lap car, held him up. He was anxious to get by to keep this guy from getting around him. Mike Miller takes the white flag. At a racetrack where he put in numerous laps throughout his racing career with a new sponsor in Old Style and Uniseal on the car, Mike Miller is going to win the LaCrosse 300 as he comes off at turn 4. Mike Miller wins the LaCrosse 300. The crew celebrates, and it's utter despair in Rick Beebe's pit as he will come home in 8th after having the dominant car. There you see him in the late stages of this one. Unbelievable finish once again with the AC-Delco Challenge Series team.
Second win of the year for Mike Miller, 4th career victory in his 102nd start in the American Speed Association.
When we come back, we'll have an opportunity to talk to the winner here today at LaCrosse Speedway, Mike Miller, about that amazing finish. We're back to LaCrosse Speedway in West Salem, Wisconsin, where we had an amazing finish to the LaCrosse 300. Never would have expected that top 5 to look like that the way it was coming towards the end there. Scott Hansen gets his 3rd top 5. Tim Sauter gets his best career finish ever. Sensiba and Carlson hang on to round out the top 5. Let's go meet our winner, Mike Miller, standing by with Dave Burns.
Well, he's still getting congratulated by a lot of folks down here who are a part of what he's done for a long time. In fact, I even saw a Dairyland Transport jersey down here. That brings back memories, Mike. How tough was this today?
Well, I tell you what, we were blessed with the weather. I thought it was just going to be an absolute bear, but this old style Uniseal Wagner-powered Pontiac, it was ready for the task.
Now, you guys had to put yourself in a position to get that lead late in the race. But what were you thinking when you saw the leader, Rick Beebe, starting to work on Junior Hanley? What was going through your mind?
Well, with 10 laps to go, I all but wrote off the race because Rick and I were the same. And Rick has been so fast so many times, but, poor guy, something happens right at the end. And I tell you what, I told Carl, my crew chief, that I would have much preferred to finish second, see him win, than to see Rick have that trouble. I mean, it's just killing me that that happened to him.
But were you backing off? Were you waiting to see what was going to happen because you knew Junior was kind of wide there?
No, I was driving this little old Pontiac for all it was worth, believe me.
Okay, he tried to catch him all day, finally got his opportunity to put it in first place, and that was good enough to get the win.
Well, echoing the thoughts we had here in the booth about how strong Rick was and how much bad luck he has had. A real class act, Mike Miller. And another victory going to his career.
6 career victories. I stand corrected. He won 3 in last season alone, and he's got 2 so far this year, and 1 win at the Minnesota State Fair back in that 1981 season.
And the fans here in Wisconsin would love to see the fact that he got another win. Real class act, Mike Miller. We've got plenty more for you coming your way from here. We're not done yet. Stay with us, please. We're back to LaCrosse Speedway, West Salem, Wisconsin, where we have finished off another thrilling finish with the AC-Delco Challenge Series. And again this season, you have the opportunity to win a Uniden Bearcat scanner along with a 1-year Racers Frequency membership from Racing Electronics. Just send your name and address on a postcard to Racing Electronics, P.O. Box 241921, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. We'll announce the winner during each ASA telecast on TNN throughout the year. So send in your card today. Now this week's winner is Sandy Yoakum from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Sandy, enjoy your scanner from Racing Electronics. Boy, she would have heard a lot of interesting things today as there was a lot of conversations going on, I'm sure, at the end of this one. And we're going to give our winning move to Kevin Sawinski. And the reason being that here is a guy, Jim, who struggled all day, got all the way back to 28th, fought his way back to finish in 6th position, and more importantly, he finishes one spot in front of Gary St. Amant, who is challenging him for the championship. So that is a driver who worked his way to what will probably be, if it doesn't change, a championship season. Well, you can see the frustrations in BB's pits. Dave?
Yeah, Rick, this isn't the interview we wanted to have. Tell us what happened out there trying to get around Junior.
Well, first I got to thank everybody on the crew, man. My guys did a great job today. Just got me in and out up front all day today, and did a super job. And I thank St. Louis Gear Oil Machine, Hodges Motorsports, Port City, Teasar Engines, Dan Hodges, and Terry Garrison and all the crew. I mean, they did a super job. I had a great race car all day. And
Rick, what happened out there?
Well, you know, I've raced this series.
Okay, I'm sorry, we had to bust away, Rick. Good job today. You guys did great.
Thank you. Probably a good thing today.
Unfortunately, Rick Beebe not going to take home the trophy here today. Mike Miller will, though, and we'll have an opportunity to see if Rick can get another win at the next race coming up at Berlin. And you'll see the next live ASA race here on TNN coming up from Milwaukee, August 24th. Check your local listings for that. Should be a 1 o'clock start Eastern time, as you see the results from the LaCrosse Speedway. So the championship chase continues between Sawinski and St. Amant. They finished 6th and 7th. And you can be sure Rick Beebe is going to do everything he can to get a victory, to get this nightmare out of his brain.
He's been 3 laps and that close to victory.
For Dave Burns and Jim Trado, I'm Ralph Shaheen. So long from LaCrosse. For two-way communications equipment for the AC-Delco Challenge Series is provided by Racing Electronics, official communications of the ASA. ASA Racing is produced for television by Silver Fox Sports of Charlotte, North Carolina.